I'm excited. I hope that you're excited too. And the reason why I'm excited is because home improvement is one of my favorite categories to work with. I have personally restored fire damaged properties and flipped houses and own a couple of rentals that I have completely remodeled. This is legitimately one of my biggest passions. And when I get to mix one of my biggest passions with one of my other biggest passions, which is hyper-targeted digital advertising, I get a little excited. So let's get into it. All right, thank you for spending the time to figure out if what we do works well for your home improvement industry. And we've actually had a lot of success utilizing hyper-targeted digital advertising with a very specific creative message to generate additional leads, build brand awareness, and overall help you stay busy, whether you are a retail home improvement store or product or service-based. And in this video, in this really demonstration, I want to showcase a couple of our capabilities and share with you kind of the things that we work on and give you a little bit of a sample, a little bit of a taste, because there is a lot more that we do behind the scenes. And what I'm going to focus on are specifically programmatic advertising, but stick with me until the end, because at the end I'm going to showcase and touch on just really quickly something that's really neat that dives into a little bit of SEO, search engine optimization, and ensuring that your information is correct across the board. But let's dive into programmatic advertising, and I'm going to minimize the screen so you can actually take a look and see what I can actually see. So I'm sure that you understand the notion of hyper-targeted digital advertising. I'm gonna move myself over here so you can see a little bit of my screen, which this gets cut off a little bit. But on one of our subpages, we have digital advertising, and really what programmatic is it's talking about display ads, video pre-roll ads, and OTT or CTV ads. And what those are going to be, if you're not familiar with them, for a video or a banner ad, it's going to be like if you went to Adweek, for example. It's hard to see a little bit in the recording, but right here there is a banner ad. So it's going to be those ads that show up in games and apps and websites, on phones, computers, tablets, those kind of areas. The next component that we are able to use this hyper-targeted capabilities that I'm going to share with you is video pre-roll ads. So if you're not watching this video on our website, you're actually watching, let's say YouTube, and you saw a commercial before that, that's a great example of video pre-roll ads. The last thing that we're able to utilize these targeting capabilities that we're going to showcase is OTT, or over the top. And that's going to be, you can kind of just see it on here, that's going to be those streaming services. So really watching live sports, live news, your favorite show, your favorite movie, any of those things through a streaming service like Xbox, Hulu, Roku, Apple TV, HBO Now, any kind of like MLB Premium Network or like CBS streaming or Fox News streaming, any of those components where you see a commercial in that kind of programming, we're going to refer to it as OTT. So that's the kind of components that we're going to look at. Not only do we do that here at Ethic Advertising of the programmatic world, we also do social, native, pay-per-click like Google AdWords, and a bunch more. But this is our specialty, and this is what we're going to focus on right now because I think it's pretty neat. So I'm going to go into our system, and the first form of targeting that I'm going to cover is what we refer to as Geofence Advertising. Geofence Advertising is going to be, and I'm going to move myself so you can see my screen a little bit, but Geofence Advertising is going to be targeting people based off of where they have physically been on a very specific and narrow targeting point. So it's not just like a 5-mile radius around your shop or your service area or something. We're talking about targeting people based off of them going into a specific building or part of a building even. So that's going to be the first thing that we're going to touch on, geofence advertising, targeting people based off of where they physically have been. Then we're going to get into where they have digitally been, so what they're searching for, what they're reading about, maybe some third-party data as well, so kind of who their profile is. And then we'll get into that last little nugget of the directory cleanup. So for geofence advertising, let's look at this map. It's actually a Google-based map that we use, so it should look pretty familiar. And I'm going to use just an example of maybe I am Lowe's Home Improvement and I want to target people that have been to Home Depot. This can work in a variety of different ways for different industries and different categories within the home improvement industry, but this is just an example to kind of whet your appetite on what this is. So if I'm going to target people that have gone to Home Depot, I'm going to grab this Home Depot, which is the one right down the road from us, and get their address and plop it into our system. And it's going to, just like a Google map would, going to showcase, okay, it is right here. This is the Home Depot. And if we want a clearer view, we can use satellite view to identify here's the parking lot, here's the Home Depot, and this is where we want to target. We want to capture people that have been here and then have the opportunity to serve them advertising, those display ads, those video pre-roll ads, and those OTT ads about 30 days after they've been to this location. So I'm going to grab this neat little tool, and this is something that I find very fascinating. Is this tool is going to do what we call our geofence around the property. Now you notice I carved out some of the parking lot, and it's a little bit of an odd shape, and that's because we can customize this fence to a certain size. In fact, we can even say we would just want to go after the gardening section, because that's what our category is about. And I know that this is the gardening section over here, not just because you can kind of see there, but that's also the Home Depot that I go to sometimes. So we can do part of a building, we can do the whole building, we can really make this customizable, which is incredibly helpful if you're trying to target an area that is in like a shopping plaza or has multiple buildings around there. Because if you're going after a paint store that's in a plaza that's next to a Dollar General, you don't want to go after the Dollar General people, you want to go after people that are in the paint store, right? Same kind of theory. So when someone enters this geofence now, then we can serve them ads, like I said, for up to 30 days. We can shorten that time period as well too, which is important when you have those quick home improvement purchases. So we can do that within, shorten it down to, well, we have to serve an ad within 15 minutes if we really want to, or instantaneous, and then a whole bunch of category or options in between that instantaneous and 30-day notion. Now, the other thing that I think is absolutely critically valuable in this kind of advertising is up here that I want to showcase you in a different map that we call conversion zones. So we set up the geofence to target people with advertising based off of where they've been, but what conversion zones allows us to do is actually identify the people that have been served ads and then actually came into your location. So going back to our example, if we are this Lowe's, and we want to know, okay, we were targeting people that went to Home Depot, and we now want to know if they actually came into our store. We want to know if the advertising worked. So we bring up this Lowe's, and we can zoom in. And I like the satellite view again. It just gives you a cleaner picture. So we have our Lowe's right here, which is, you know, in theory, our client at this point. And we want to go and create a conversion zones. Lost my tool for a second there. And create a conversion zone around this location. And it creates this gold little fence that allows us to identify, hey, this person saw the ad, they came into our store location, and you get true physical conversions, which is obviously incredibly valuable to estimate the effectiveness of this kind of advertising. This can also get kind of applied to other campaigns as well too. Whenever we can pair up geofencing with like an outdoor campaign or a transit campaign or even direct mail with addressable, which we're going to talk about next, it can actually showcase the value of those components too, and give you a really nice research base on identifying what advertising is working, what's not working, what needs changed. So that's traditional geofencing. And next, like I talked about, or like I just mentioned, I want to talk about addressable geofencing. Now, obviously, people aren't bringing their computers into the Home Depot or the Lowe's. They're going to be bringing their phones, and that's what we're tracking mainly. But it's incredibly important for me to also mention that we use cross-device matching to serve ads to people. What that means is, although we're doing a lot of this tracking with geofences using satellites and GPS data to capture these devices, which are mainly phones, if that phone is connected to a tablet, a computer, a smart TV, then it's going to allow us to also start serving ads to those devices as well. So you're not just doing Hulu ads on the phone, you're actually getting onto their TV. You're not just doing video pre-roll ads on the phone, you're getting on their tablet, and banner ads are going to be showing up on their computer and so on. So I think that's really important to talk about with geofencing and to mention. Now, I want to jump into addressable geofencing, which is going to be a little bit different. Traditional geofencing is more about targeting businesses, events, locations that maybe are kind of bigger and broader, and it's a very manual process. What addressable geofencing is going to do is it's going to automate the process for mainly residential addresses. So if you have a mailing list, if you have a direct mail campaign, or if you have a kind of service or product base that has repeat business that we have their addresses, we can go after those homes and those consumers directly based off of their home addresses by taking them, uploading them into our system, and then automatically grabbing their property line and setting up these automated geofences. So it goes from a manual process of having to draw each individual line to a very automated process where we can do 100,000 property, 1 million properties all at once instantaneously. Now, you might be saying, well, Jeff, that's neat and all, but we don't do direct mail. We maybe have a service that is a one-time thing, like our basement waterproofing client. If they do their job right, they don't have repeat customers. They have referrals, but not repeat customers. But for whatever reason, you don't have this mail list. And that's what I want to show you next. So I'm going to make me small again, and I'm sure you guys don't want to see me anyway, and grab my system over here as well. So addressable geofencing also has the capabilities with our system to create a custom list based off of over 1,500 different criteria focused in on the household itself. I already took the liberty of grabbing a couple of different key data points. So I grabbed Pittsburgh metro area. I grabbed that they make over $70,000 a year as a household income. And the other component is that they're homeowners. Very basic components that a lot of home improvement companies like to look at and go after. And I'm able to identify almost 200,000 parcels, so 200,000 homes, and almost 800,000 estimated devices within those homes. So that's pretty neat, but that's not hyper-targeted, right? That's not what we're talking about. Hyper-targeted is that Lowe's and that Home Depot example with the traditional geofencing. This stuff is targeted. It's not that hyper-targeted. Well, I set this up, and now I want to dive into it and do a couple of scenarios with you to showcase, okay, this is how we get hyper-targeted. So let's say I only care about a small service area. I don't care about all of Pittsburgh. I can actually narrow that down. And we have a couple different categories. One of the most useful ones that we have is the postal code, so zip code targeting. And I'm going to grab a couple of zip codes that I've lived in, that our office is in, that I just know by heart. And let's see. 1527. And grab these as well. And I'm going to remove Pittsburgh. I just care about these 3 zip codes. And through the zip codes, we can do county, and we can do, a whole bevy of different areas. So now this is grabbing homes that make that $70,000 or more household income, that own their home, they're homeowners, and they're only in these 3 zip codes. And it went from almost 200,000 parcels down to a little over 15,000 parcels, which is pretty neat. That's getting into that hyper-targeted stuff, right? Well, let's dive even deeper into the type of households that we're reaching. So if we go into here, and let's say, one example that I thought of, because this is on top of my mind, because we just installed this a little bit ago, is invisible fences, or fences in general. But a nice quick example is you can go after people that are dog owners. And I'm just going to grab that really quickly and then showcase a couple of things that are more about the home and more valuable to a lot of home improvement capabilities. But all of a sudden, we went from 200,000 homes roughly in all of Pittsburgh area to just 3 zip codes that went down to about 15,000 and change. And now there's about 4,200 and change homes within these criteria, within these zip codes, that make a certain amount of money, they own their home, they have a pet. So it's narrowed down for that fences or invisible fences. But let's remove pet. You're not it's a small portion of you that are actually going to be doing fences and invisible fences. So let's look at some things that are more valuable to of the broader audience that's watching this. So residential homes, we have all these different categories, but this is a great area for us to look at, because we can look at things like available home equity. If you are a big project contractor or home improvement company, they have to be able to afford it. So they either have to get a loan on it, or if they have to have cash on it in order to pay for a big kitchen remodel, an addition, something that is going to cost a lot of money. So this is a great component to identify these people have the equity in their home to take out of it to do something with it. And then you can kind of go through here and see if you are a concrete refinisher for garages and basements. So garage size would be a good one, but even more importantly, just the fact that there's an attached garage or has a garage is very valuable to grab for that industry. And then you can go down here and grab single family home versus multi-family home. You can grab the home value down here as well. You can talk about the home size. You can look at liens. You can look at if they've moved recently, the purchase price that they have, roofing, perfect. What kind of roof they have, swimming pools. If you install swimming pools, if they have one, if you want to do maintenance and get in front of them, for that's a great resource. So this is, again, just a small example to showcase some of the hyper-targeted nature that we can kind of dive into and zero in on your audience using where they physically have been, and in this case, what their home component is like, and targeting them when they are at home. Actually, not when they are at the home, targeting people that have been to their home and then targeting them wherever they might be, because they might have gone home, triggered this because we have the right categories in there, but then they're at the office playing on their phone, or their computer is tied to their phone, and we can start serving them ads wherever they are and follow them around to remind them and sell them on the idea of using your product or your service. So that's targeting based off of where they physically have been. We can dive into third-party data, which is kind of like what we just discussed on a individual basis. This is all about with geofencing, addressable geofencing on the home. The third-party data that we have gets into more of like the individuals. But one thing that I'm a big believer of is there's better way to go about identifying the people that are going to take action and actually buy from you now than doing third-party data. Third-party data tends to take a little bit of time to curate, and it takes a little bit of time to get the information. So by the time we use it to start targeting people, they maybe already made that purchase. So it may be wasting those dollars. So that's why for home improvement categories, not in all cases, sometimes third-party data is good, but a lot of times we like to build lists of keywords. So keywords lists are going to be like, this is for a HVAC plumbing company. So building out these keyword lists, what we are able to do with these is take these lists, and maybe it's toilet installation is the example that I'm going to use here. And if someone is typing and looking for online toilet installation, then it puts them into our user pool to serve them ads. If someone is reading about toilet installation. Doesn't even have to have typed into a search. They just are clicking around and they got to an article or information or how-to video or something on toilet installation, and that could trigger for us to be able to serve them these display, video pre-roll ads, and OTT ads. So this is much more real time. It's more about building custom ad sets as well too. Where third-party data is going to be a little more broader, it's going to take a little more time to curate, and this is going to be a little more instantaneous. The other component that we like to use a lot is site retargeting, which is if someone went to your website, then we're going to follow them around. So this is a great feature on real-time usage of the consumer and taking that data and serving ads based off of what they're searching for, reading about, and where they have been online. So those are kind of the hyper-targeted programmatic components that we use, or really some of them and the combinations we have. Again, if this interests you, hit that demo button. We'll do something custom for you and look at your specific category and services and products and really kind of dive into what we can do for you. Now it's time for that little bonus item that I wanted to mention, simply because updating your directory information, making sure that your content on Google, on Angie's List, on Yelp, on all of these different categories, even ones that you haven't even heard of before, is incredibly valuable for you to be able to be found. Not only having information on these directories means that it's another stumbling point for someone to find you and contact you, but that's what the algorithms really want from Google and Yahoo and Bing, is to see that you have the right information, the same information across the board on multiple directories. So there's a couple of services that are out there that do this. A lot of them are monthly maintenance services. I know Yext is a really big proponent of having this information on there, but you have to pay them a monthly service. What we do, what we call our manual submission 50, is actually just correct it once. It's a one-time fee. You don't have to keep on paying for it for that information to be correct. We take the information that you want, and you can actually see, this is the platform that we use, and you can type in Bob's Home Improvement, and this is what, whoops, if I could type, and this is the name of my company that I want to show up across 50 different directories, be added to directories that I should be on that I'm not on, correct it if it was something like Bob's Construction before on a couple of things, and then hit OK. And it's an easy submission form. So now it's a phone number. I changed my phone number a little bit ago, or I have a couple of different phone numbers, so I can put something like that in there. And it's just a step-by-step easy process to use, and we will update your information across the 4 major data providers that are out there that kind of spread your information across the board, plus 50 other specific directories that make sense for your industry. So I'm going to bring myself big again. And that's the quick little demo that we have. It's a general demo. It's a small insight into what we do, and actually just a small insight into the kind of advertising we do. You know, not just programmatic, not just directory cleanup stuff. We get into and have something that's all inclusive to create what I call a spider web of trigger points to capture your audience and get in front of the right person at the right time, and again, with the right message. You know, we do full creative too, video, audio, and graphic design. So if you want to talk about your specific business, if you want to talk about your specific industry, this is my ask. Let's have a conversation. There's no strings attached. I'm happy to spend the time with you to showcase what we can do for you and identify if it's the right fit. Do you make sense for us, and do we make sense for you? So I invite you to hit that demo button, or if you're not on our website, hit that link to go to our website and do a demo. And I'm really looking forward to doing something custom with you. And I appreciate your time on bettering your business, improving your lead flow, and really kind of narrowing in on your audience and having a lot less waste.